Hello, welcome to a special Halloween edition of Drinking with Comics. I'm Sean, and I'm just going to talk briefly about some of my regular Halloween reads because I have some I do every year or almost every year. First, I'll be imbibing Samuel Smith's Nut Brown Ale. You guys never had this? It's like $6 a bottle. Fantastic. Might find it in some better grocery stores. I used to find them in Vaughn's in LA. I just picked this up at Mulligan's in Clarksville. Oh, it's been a while. This is a beautiful brown beer. And Sammy Smith, one of the oldest breweries in England. Um, I believe this is all totally organic. It's just such good beer. All their beers are great, but I always really love the Nut Brown, I think the most. There is just a taste on the back end of these. It's something about British beers. If you like Newcastle, you'll like this. Um, yeah, I mean that's really the closest thing I can compare it to. That's maybe a little bit more wide-reaching, has a little bit more notoriety, and it is important to note. I've complained on other volumes of this show before about Newcastle and how they have a lovely brown ale that they would put in a clear glass bottle, thus leaving it open to light, which can completely destroy the flavor. If you've ever gotten a skunked batch of Newcastle, you know what I'm talking about. That's because light got to it. I noticed recently, I bought Newcastle and it had been quite some time. In fact, I didn't buy it. A neighbor had it and it was they finally put it in brown glass. Oh, thank God. Okay, Halloween reads. I did one last week, Batman Doom that came to Gotham. So I'm going to continue with that kind of like macro big two label stuff because this is a lot of stuff I was reading when I was a kid, and this, for whatever reason, really screams Halloween to me. So the first one, easily my favorite Spider-Man story ever. And I have quite a few favorite Spider-Man stories, but this is the best. This is J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck's Kraven's Last Hunt. So I read this monthly in whatever year it came out. It was either 87 or 88. I feel like it was 87. Um, this is just the best Spider-Man story, and it is very, very horrific, very mature reader, very Halloween to me. Kraven basically decides that in order to best Spider-Man, he's going to kill him and then don his costume and become a better Spider-Man. But this story it's just fucking nuts. Zeke's art, it's so Halloween to me. I don't know, so autumnal. But yeah, so Kraven's Last Hunt. I have the single issues, but it's so good. I actually bought this hardcover uh more than a couple years ago. I'm sure it is still in print. If not, it's worth tracking down. Wonderful Spider-Man story. These I've talked about before on this show, but these are my every year without a fail reads. So we got James O'Barr, The Crow, the original. I'm not a fan of the movie. Uh, this is one of the greatest things I've ever read. Without fail, I always cry. It is very emotional. I first read this in high school before the movie came out, saw the movie, didn't care for it, still don't care for it, although I've never given it a second shot. But this book is just heart-rending, and the art is gorgeous, the writing is gorgeous, everything about it is fantastic. We had James O'Barr on this show a couple years ago. He autographed my copy, and as you can see, it's very well read. I just finished reading it again earlier today, and it never loses its punch ever. Other one I read every year, Rick Spears, Rob G's Teenagers from Mars. This is just very much very indicative of how I grew up. Very post-punk, social aspects that grew up around horror movies, punk music, DIY music, and comic shops. And it's a love letter really to comic books. And the characters just feel like people I grew up with. I can definitely trace similarities. Both of these readily available. The Crow and Teenagers from Mars. You can find them quite easily. This was new to me. This, I believe, is now gone out of print, which is crazy. But I'm a big Kelly Jones fan. Chris Saunders and I had him on A Most Horrible Library a couple years ago, and there's a two-part episode where we just talk about really Kelly Jones, but also really the three of us just talk about Bernie Wrightson. Um, I had never read Kelly Jones and Mike Baron's Dead Man. Dead Man's a character. It's Boston Brand. He was a trapeze artist or an aerialist that was killed, and then a goddess resurrects him as this ghost, and he fits into the DCU in a very weird way. You may have seen him floating around in some of the he's a very Vertigo character that never, I don't really think ever had a Vertigo series, but he was kind of synonymous with like Swamp Thing and John Constantine back in the 80s and early 90s. And then in the New 52, I think he was in that Dark Justice League or Justice League Dark or whatever. Never really cared for the character. Kelly Jones can write anything or can draw anything and I'll read it. So I love this. Not going to make me seek anything else out with the character, but I absolutely love his rendition of it, and these stories are fantastic. And Mike Baron, I've been a fan since he wrote the original Punisher series. I think in the first ongoing was 86 or 87. He was the first writer on it for the first 2 or 3 years, and I love all those Punisher stories. Those to me are the best ones. I hold them in even higher regard than the Garth Ennis stuff. No offense to that, but just, that was the inception of the character for me. But this Kelly Jones, Mike Baron, Dead Man, if you can track down a copy, this is the compendium. It's like everything. There are versions of some of the stuff on Amazon and Kindle, but I don't think it's everything. So this book, if you can find it on eBay or something, very, very worth your while. Then the last one I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to pull it out because I didn't feel like going through my boxes to find the single issues, but it is readily available in a collected trade paperback. Grant Morrison and Klaus Jansson's Batman Gothic. So that was a 5-part story in 1989 to kind of celebrate Batman leading up to the first Tim Burton movie. DC did a bunch of Batman stuff, and one of them was they added a new title called Legends of the Dark Knight. The first 5 issues, I forget who did it. It was pretty good. The second was Gothic, and I didn't know who Grant Morrison was then. I think most people didn't, although Arkham Asylum came right around the same time. But that, for my money, is the best Batman story ever told. It is super fucking dark. It's about a child killer in like the 50s that a bunch of mafia guys decide to get together and kill because he's killing children and bringing heat on them, on crime in general. So they get together and they kill him, but he has sold his soul to the devil. And so he comes back like 30 years later and starts killing them one by one. And they actually go to Batman for help. It's fucking awesome. There's a scene where they use an inverted bat symbol from a rooftop to call Batman, and he shows up and is not fucking happy. It's so Grant Morrison. It was funny because I loved it as a kid, read it, had no idea, who the writer was or whatever. And then years later become a Grant Morrison fan. And like the first time I go like, oh, it's been a couple of years, I should read Gothic. And I pulled it out and I was like, holy shit, Grant Morrison. No kidding. Batman Gothic, fantastic Halloween read. All of these are like perfect for this time of year. That would probably be, out of all these, well, Teenagers from Mars and The Crow I read every year. And, The Crow is one of my favorites ever, but Gothic is up there. It is really, really good. And like I said, readily available. So yeah, those are Halloween reads. And I hope you read them and enjoy them. And if you do, let me know. And if you give Sammy Smith a taste, let me know what you think. Hi, I'm Sean. Join me and my friends every week for the Horror Vision, where we talk about horror movies.
A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus MV20 soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Autumnal Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadowplay Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.